Ask a few of them. Like when the kids start preparing for those kind of things, I know there are all kinds of forms among all the colleges. Mm-hmm. What is the guidelines for kids to start preparing? I mean, you already mentioned academic. That's one thing. I mean, here most kids don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. They list several other criteria. I want to have a sort of a list, consolidated list, what we can do. One thing I know is leadership and community service, talents. You know, you have to learn something actual to build up your talents, and those 3-4 things that I've heard the most. Do you have such a list that can show us?
Well, there's no comprehensive list. I mean, there's a like for example, Cornell. The Cornell example I was talking to you about, they let in someone because he had these awesome gray lily pads in his backyard. I mean, you can't, what I'm saying is that you can't possibly list out every single way in which you can stand out. I mean, the only way you can go about it is to think generally. I mean, obviously be strong academically, have strong extracurriculars, and especially have leadership positions in those extracurriculars, community service. I mean, you know, basically what you said. As far as the details, you know.
So those things I said is true.
Yeah.
So when they do have some kind of criteria when they go through the first round. You mentioned the regional officer. Mm-hmm. They do have a criteria, a list of criteria. First cut maybe academic scores.
They don't have a list right here. They sort of get a picture in their head about how much they like you and give you a score. And so there's no list saying, you know, do this, play soccer, you know, play piano or whatever. The only I mean the general guideline is just to, you know, do extracurriculars, do things that are not just academic, and to excel in them, and you know, and to sort of have a passion for something.
Yeah.
That's
important, you know. 我到那个东北部那去过很多学校去看看，就是说 must be passionate about something. 我们比较 lack，OK， 像我们这 generation， 哦，混饭吃就行了。这个美国人就是说，吃不饱饭，他有一个 passion， 他饿着肚子呢，还要 change the world。OK， 如果你能 convince 那个 admissions officer， 你就是这种人，马上就要你。
Yeah.
Right.
I got a question about how important do you think it is for the applicant to tell clearly, either in the application form or in the interview process, what the major, you know, is for the applicant?
There's no rule. It depends. Mm-hmm. I'm just speculating. I don't know if this is correct, mm-hmm. but I'm just speculating that when I put, and I didn't know that this would happen. When I put down engineering, it probably helped me because Yale had very few engineering students. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, it's very hard to tell how schools will evaluate that. But as a general rule, I guess if a school has a department that it traditionally has not been very strong in, mm-hmm. maybe that can give you a leg up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also related question to that is, based on your experience, do you feel like this process is somewhat different between the liberal arts and engineering? Do you think also that's very common?
I think engineering schools, this is why so many of us go there, they tend to focus more on the academics. There's less of these sort of fuzzy factors. For engineering schools, especially for like large state engineering schools like Georgia Tech, mm-hmm. or you know, name some other engineering school.
Caltech.
Well, Caltech's way up there. It's one of the hardest schools to get into, mm-hmm. so that might be different. But you know, large, you know, well-ranked state engineering schools, you pretty much know whether you're getting in by your grades and your SAT score. Yeah. So this model applies only to like, you know, the sort of top-ranked.
What do you think that guy's problem was? You know, I mean, he looks so strong and stuff. Maybe he's boring, not interesting.
He must have not written a good essay. Guy. He must have not written a good essay.
Okay.
His interview was probably not
pretty
that
bad, huh? Like mean-spirited and you know,
well,
boring
not necessarily mean-spirited. A lot of people make this mistake, and a lot of people, my year when we applied, made this mistake. They feel like, you know, I've got the academic credentials, I have a perfect SAT score, what more can I do? Well, he probably ignored these two things, you know? He probably wasn't able to come off as a person that, you know, was interesting to talk to, or that had any sort of a personality whatsoever. his essay probably was just, very ordinary and boring.
So when you say academic strong, do you mean the SAT plus the high school GPA are considered this academic?
Those are the two main components.
Is there anything else or?
Or competition, if you got like rank number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the states, or top say 100, right, 50 in like physics or math competition, and you pretty much can get into MIT, right?
So, okay, SAT and this
competition.
GPA in high school, not the middle school. Not
No,
middle
middle
school, right?
school.
Middle school don't count.
Too early.
Don't count.
Too early.
High school, and then plus the actual competition, like nationwide or statewide.
Yeah, of course, that helps a lot.
Anything else, or that's all, right? It's pretty much.
No, anything could possibly.
Oh, like a Siemens, Intel, that type of, awards and stuff. Again, it's kind of hard,
Yeah. There's the thing about your question is that there's really no closed list of things I can say. Do this, 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 and you'll get in. I mean, it's completely open-ended. If you're really good at what you do, that'll show through.
Right, but the main thing is high school GPA and this SAT, the basic things.
Well, yeah, for most people, but I would say if you're an Asian applicant, that's sort of it's more like a baseline.
Right.
Yeah, that's really a baseline. You have to have something else. Yeah.
Okay, so in the process at which the committee decides on whether they should, like when they're actually attacking the applicant, would it be more on?
I wouldn't say attacking. I mean, there's thinking through and.
Okay, when they challenge when they challenge what they do. Okay, a bit personal. Would they usually try to? Do you know if they would actually like figure out things that they don't do, like if they're maybe lacking in athletics? But like, do you?
Well, I think if you're Asian and you only have academic things on your resume, that's assumed.
Okay.
Do they? So your question is, do they think about do they look for what's missing otherwise?
Yeah. Do
In
they
other words.
look for what's missing, or do they look for just weaknesses in general?
I think it's more of looking for weaknesses within your application.
Okay.
I don't think they have a list and say, oh, he didn't do sports or drama or whatever. I think they're looking at your application itself and sort of picking apart, whatever weaknesses you may have just based on what you've written.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. First step, you recommended it by the regional commission, right? They recommend you, then you have a chance to get it to the school committee, right?
Yeah.
And then, for example, one spot they may have like a 10 candidate or something. I mean, I just and then you get admitted, and I just kind of.
I don't think that.
What's the ratio? I mean, just how many candidates?
For example,
twice as many as they were eventually admitted.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how many people get cut at every stage. The final count is, all of the high-ranked Ivy League schools, they're around 10% right now. Yale, Harvard, and Princeton, I think, have dipped below 10%.
So I mean, the regional admissions officer make a recommendation.
Yeah.
What's the ratio of the recommended?
I don't know.
And then,
I don't know what those numbers are.
The vote down maybe half.
Yeah.
You use final official rate means among total applicants.
Yeah.
10% got admitted final.
Yeah.
Right?
It's less
around
than
10%.
7 by now, 7 or 8.
7-8%.
Yeah. And remember, if you're Asian, it's going to be
Even
Probably
3%.
3%.
Even lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me give you one.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for interview?
How do you prepare for the interview? Okay, this actually brings up a really important point. If you don't mind me just going on for a second here.
Just go.
So, at most of these schools, you have an option of interviewing, going to the school, interviewing on campus, or being interviewed by an alumni who lives in your area. So, and my friend in the admissions department, he was a campus interviewer, and so this is what he told me. Basically, if you go and interview on campus, first of all, that shows the school that you're interested, that you took the effort to hike all the way up there, especially if it's far, and to set up a formal interview and go through all the hoops where, as opposed to just waiting and sitting until an alum contacts you. But second of all, if you think about how the process works, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of alums out there interviewing. There's no way for this interviewing process to, proceed by any standard rubric, right? However, if you interview at the school, you're going to be interviewed by an official admissions office interviewer who's been trained, right? So if you interview at school, that interview will count a lot more than your regular alumni interview. So that's something you guys should be aware of. And going to your question of, this is really where you're going to score here. You have to appear like an interesting person. Basically, they don't grill you. They don't ask you hard questions. It's not like a job interview. Think of it more as a date. They take you out to coffee, and you just basically you have about a 1 hour to 2 hour conversation about who you are, what you like. Make sure they know what their passion is, because they're going to get asked that question. But there's really no. As far as preparation, be familiar with everything you've written in your application, because they'll ask you questions about it, and you don't want to appear like you don't know what you've written. But just go there with an open mind and just be prepared to discuss. I mean, a good indicator of how well you're going to do in your interview is, can you hold a conversation, a 1 hour long conversation with a 25-year-old and come off as interesting, I mean, there are just an unlimited number of ways you can do that, but that's the ultimate goal.
Are you done with the interview part?
Yeah.
You said there's an option that the students can choose between an on-campus interview or the alumni interview. Where that toggle that I can choose from is on the application?
I don't think it's actually on the application. You can call the admissions office and ask to have one. I didn't know about this, and so I just did. And the thing about the interviews, don't think, interviews hardly ever make or break an application. Like, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But, oh right, I know a lot of people who've gotten in without interviewing at all. I know people who've gotten in where the alumni contacted them and said, I want to interview you, and they ignored the alumni. So the interview, the interview it's not going to make or break your application. The only way that it's actually going to have a big impact is if you actually go there and interview. They look at it more seriously. Yeah.
So in other words, after you submitted the application, you make a special request, and I will be interested in going to your campus.
Yeah. But be careful though, because if you don't interview well, that's going to work in the opposite direction. It's going to be very important. It's going to be a very important evaluation working against you. Yeah. So it's a risk.
Well, if an alumni say, you are not that good, it doesn't carry a lot of weight.
But I thought after you submit the application, generally speaking, you wait for some response. You cannot contact office and say, I request an interview.
Yes, you can.
Okay? Or you do that step before you hear anything back from them.
Similar question about the interview. You initiate the interview process. You can contact them, asking for.
Right. Normally, after you submit your application, they'll process your file and they will contact you. Yeah. You'll get a phone call or an email from a local alum volunteer.
So any applicants would get the interview or
pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much everyone.
Yeah, pretty
it's
much
not
everyone.
like a job interview. You made it into an interview or something.
They just want to get to know you as a person. Yeah.
So you want to go to the campus and have an interview instead of waiting for the alumni to have a event?
Well, if you interview well, if you think you can use this opportunity well, then I'd say go for it. But if you're not sure that you're one of those people who can really score big on an interview, I wouldn't risk it.
Just don't go.
After you submit even early decision or something after October, it's hard to just fly everywhere, get 7 interview, right?
Well, yeah, very few people do that, and you don't need to do that to get in. I'm just saying that if you have the time, if you have the resources, it could help. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, you had another question?
Yes, I do want to ask another question. For example, if I were a candidate, what can you tell me what things I need to do to enrich my resume to make myself look interesting?
You can like keep a crocodile or something, you know.
I mean, to look interesting, first of all, remember, you're being compared to the people in your region. So you need to look interesting compared to other applicants in the Atlanta area. Let me just give you an example. For me, I think what made me a little more interesting than the average Asian applicant was that I went to this camp in West Point where it was basically like boot camp for 2 weeks, and it was a very exotic experience. And I wrote about it in my essay, and I feel like that would have been pretty eye-catching. But, you know, there's no, yeah.
你们可以用中文问问题啊。
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have any tips for the essay?
The essay. Yeah. Well, again, well, first of all, let me say that some students spend like 3 or 4 months on their essay. Other students who've gotten in write it the night before, and so a lot of how your essay writing experience is going to turn out to be just depends on what kind of a writer you are. Like I spent the standard, you know, month on mine and then revising it a few times. Definitely, if you can, get someone who goes to that school to read your essay, because they know what kind of essay it takes to get in. They sort of generally know what kind of applicant the school is looking for. So, I mean, there is no such thing as a good topic or a bad topic. It all depends on how you spin it. So I think the best piece of advice I could give you is to give it to someone who has gone to that school, and they should know what to tell you.
But is it also important if you show you are like, you know, you're skilled writer or you're prolific, you know, writer or something in the essay?
No, I mean, just the very act of writing, they'll be, just in the act of writing an essay, they'll know whether you're a good writer or not. I mean, the 500 words or so is definitely enough space for them to get a feel for your writing skills. There's just something else I wanted to say about the essay.
我跟你讲，我知道一个朋友的孩子去MIT， 他是最后赶的，最后 submit 完了以后，发现里面 spell check 都没有，好多字都不对，他想完了 get in。
Because made mistake.
不是，他就说至少不是找别人写的 ，OK， 肯定。你要 professional 可以，现在美国说没有挣很大钱的 professional， 专门给你花1年时间搞这东西，对不对？但 college 那些人，他说他们能看出来，我怀疑。他说 we can tell just by looking at it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's another important point. Make sure your essay coordinates well with the other parts of your application. Like what I did was, I wrote about, you know, an easy way to do this and a very effective way to do it is to use the essay to elaborate on an extracurricular that, you know, you feel very strongly about and that you spend a lot of time doing. I wrote my essay about my piano teacher because I spent a lot of time playing piano. And so you can use it to sort of, you know, sort of glue the pieces of your application together into straighten certain parts of it.
Do you consider the essay to be more of a formal sort of talk about, or would it be more of like the number 2, get to know you more and like talk more?
I would say, you know, it's not a paper that you're submitting for class. You definitely don't want to write an essay that way. Yeah, I would say you want to go for a more informal, conversational tone, sort of, you know, introducing yourself so that so you can help them get to know you. Don't stick with a formal format on the essay.
I know most of the schools, they probably would ask you a question like, why do you choose to apply my school here? And I know also there's no standard answer to that. Could you share, like, in your case, how did you address that?
Okay, so I think about half the people who apply to Yale talk about the same thing when they get asked that question. They love the residential college system. If you don't know what that is, that's like Harry Potter, where Hogwarts, you have Gryffindor, whatever and whatever. Yale's divided into small colleges, and it's really cool, fun buildings. But that's what most people talk. I think, did I write about that? Not sure. Although this is a good point though, because remember, like I said, the school is looking to maintain its own institutions, right? Mm-hmm. So if you say something to them that shows that you've done the research and that you're likely to contribute to a certain institution, say, oh, you know, I love writing and I want to serve on the school newspaper. That'll be good. That'll be a great answer, because the school can at least know that they have a writer who, you know, who can contribute to the school journals or newspaper. Or, you know, if you play violin, you can say, oh, I heard, you know, the orchestra's great, and so I definitely want to be a part of that. I mean, those are all, you can sort of play with it that way. Yeah.
I have a question. I remember you mentioned the application score to be coherent and consistent, right?
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Is that related with you need your school recommendation letter and your ASO to introduce yourself into consistent?
Well, all I really mean by that is, remember, the admissions officer is going to spend about 10 minutes reading through your file. And in that 10 minutes, all the different pieces and parts of your application should match up. Like my example was, if you wrote your essay about a certain extracurricular, you know, then you should be sure that, you know, that's an extracurricular that you've listed on your application and that you've listed a lot of hours for. That shows that, you know, so it's sort of the different parts of your application coming together and coordinating.
And will you apply the school, do you use the school, your teacher, or some other, your, like teacher, your school administration, provide any recommendation letter?
Yeah, I think it's 2 teachers and your counselor. So 3.
You do need, right?
Yeah, they're required for most schools.
But you can choose which teacher you would like to write the recommendation. You can pick up the teacher.
Yeah, so here are my thoughts on that. You want to choose teachers to write your recommendations. You want to choose teachers, first of all, you know, who at least know who you are, and who know you well, you've done well in their classes, and preferably who know you outside of class, who know you as a person. And so they can really fill out this picture for you on their recommendations. Here's another consideration. Choose teachers whom you know write well. I don't know how big of an impact that is. This is just sort of my reflection on this, but I chose my English teacher because I knew, you know, if she knew one thing, it was how to write a recommendation letter. And so, you know, you just want to make sure that whatever they send to the school is going to reflect on you in the best way possible. And also, the colleges require a letter of recommendation from your counselor. Now, remember, the admissions, your regional officer knows or should know what kind of school you go to. And if it's a school with like 1,200 students to 1 counselor, they're not going to count it against you if your counselor doesn't know you that well. And so your regional officer will be able to adjust for all of these quirks in your application. Yeah.
Would you suggest writing several essays for different colleges, or reusing the same one?
Let me just tell you what I did. I wrote 1 essay that I sent to every school, and then, but be careful that if you write an essay that's tailored to a school, you change the school name when you send it to another school. Because this happens a lot. Because, you know, it's a lot of paperwork to coordinate, and you want to get the name of the school right.
Yeah, 你们在 actually 那个 admissions office 说了说，哈佛怎么好，送到那个耶尔去了，耶尔一看。
I don't know if they'll throw it out, but it just doesn't look good. But as far as recycling, I recycled one of my essays for every single one of my applications, and then I wrote 2 main essays. So I used 2 of those a lot, and then they're like other sort of short answer things that you have to write on your own anyway. But yeah, I did a lot of recycling.
Okay, you said you screwed up Harvard, screwed up Princeton, and then how did you get into Yale? I mean, is there any special thing?
They didn't give me the opportunity to screw up like Harvard and Princeton did. They didn't ask me what my passion was.
Well, I mean, that's only one question, you know.
That is the most important question you will be asked in this entire process. I can guarantee you. They will ask you, and if you don't have a good answer, that'll look really bad. But as far as Yale, the thing is, the fact that I didn't have a passion didn't mean that, didn't mean that I was an empty, boring person. It just meant that I didn't really think of my activities that way, with a central driving passion. And the thing is, when my Yale interview went really, really well, I got along really well with the guy. He sort of, we just clicked really well. I talked a lot. He really got to know me. And he said he wrote me the best recommendation he's ever given anyone in Georgia. And so, I mean, but as you can see, a lot of that's luck. Had he sort of driven at me the same way the Harvard interviewer did and put me on the spot and said, "What's your passion?" I would have screwed up there too. So a lot of it's luck. Yale simply didn't,
They did
give
a
me
different
the
way to
opportunities
interview.
Yeah.
To find
They
your
didn't,
interest.
yeah.
It's almost like you guys have a lot of common to talk to. I mean, it's like, really well, talk a long time.
我儿子跟那个 MIT 的 interview 聊了3个小时，聊到半夜。
Yeah.
That's good.
And the thing is, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be
他们
fun.
肯定没问他的 passion， 但是我儿子修了他的 passion， 就是说cooking。
Yeah, and that'll fall under here. Cooking will make them interesting.
当时他的Yale的 interview 就是 Priceline.com 的CEO。
哦。
不知道你知道这个 company Priceline.com。
Wow.
Yeah, you might get interviewed by a famous person. Just don't sweat.
Priceline.
Oh, I see.
Priceline.com?
Yeah, that's very, very famous.
Yeah.
By the staff teaching.
Go for it. Why did I go to Yale? Well, okay. I'll tell you the honest reason. I was sitting at my piano lesson one day, and my piano teacher said, "So do you want to keep playing piano in college?" I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Okay, go to Yale." So I really didn't put a lot of thought into this, to be honest to you. I mean, my parents, they had their high standards. They wanted me to get into like a top-ranked school, and my piano teacher nudged me toward Yale, and so I applied to Yale early. Yeah.
那个时候有那个 early decision 吗？还是你说？
Yeah. See, I didn't want to talk about early applications for this one reason, and I'll share that because the policy is just changing so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Harvard got rid of theirs. Princeton got rid of theirs. Yale kept theirs, but then Harvard and Princeton are going to try to bring it back in the next few years. But somehow last year Yale changed their policy on early admissions completely, and instead of deferring the majority, they rejected the majority. There's nothing. The only thing you should know about early action is this: it can help you, it can't hurt you. So if you like a school, you might as well apply early.
For the high school kids, if they take more AP class, would that help them to
Yeah, here's the thing. It depends on your high school. You should take as many AP classes, or not as many, but a reasonable number of AP classes given how many your school offers. Again, the officer will know what kind of school you go to. They'll know how many AP classes your school offers. And so they'll be able to gauge, by how many you've taken, how rigorous your high school curriculum was. So take as many as is reasonable. There's no point in killing yourself over it. Okay, so I mean,
but they would drive. I mean, AP classes are harder than average class, right?
Yeah, it helps a lot. But I mean, the thing is, I didn't take every AP class I was offered. I definitely didn't take every AP class I was offered, and still, I mean, I was fine. So you don't have to, take all of them, but. Take a good, take a very heavy load, but there's no need to really strain yourself.
There's a balance between your GPA and the AP classes. 有的小孩说呀，这个我退可以容易的，我 GPA 不就高嘛？他两方面的考虑。
Yeah. Let me get this kid over here.
Would you consider as another person a good reason to put as why you'd like to go to a college? Like a certain person inspired you to go to a certain college?
Yeah, sure. It depends on who the person is, what your relationship is. How it depends on how you can tell that story in your essay. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, there's no rule on good topics or bad. Well, yeah, there is one bad topic. Don't talk about unrequited love. That's one thing that I think the Vanderbilt application admissions officer told us. He said there's only one topic that we just really hate. That's stories about you know, high school unrequited love, because that just shows immaturity apparently.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
What did that mean?
You know, you like someone, they don't like you back. You know. No. Yeah. Yeah.
我没听见你说我要想去的那个学校，我最好是别去申请 early 呢，还是说要申请 early？
Yeah. Early action does help. It can help, but it won't hurt you. So if you like a school, you should apply early. I applied early, and yeah, I think that definitely helped me.
另外你要看它那个 statistics， 我刚刚比如说哥伦比亚对不对？你要想去的话，你 early 30%的录取率，你要是 regular 10%。Big difference.
But the applicant pool might be more competitive.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
there are a lot of moving parts here. It's hard to tell, but
The reason I mentioned that when you have only one common app. Now if you apply for earlier, that means you have to finish your common apps a month or 2 months earlier.
Yeah.
That could hurt you, right?
How?
Doesn't matter.
How could
if I'm not prepared, I'm losing 2 months.
If you're diligent, I mean, you can
start
you have
early.
plenty of time to fill out your application.
And on the other hand, I could be better, I could be stand out compared to the other guy that not prepared.
No, early applicants are compared to other early applicants.
Right.
So everybody gets, you know, that amount of time. Yeah.
But in school, if you prepare early, you have advantage. 就刚才说是 early action 啊，如这就是跟别的学生比起来 ，regular application 的话呢，你是有优势的。为什么呢？因为你要准备你 full application package， 你要找这些 council 的这些老师写 application， 要写 recommendation letter， 对不对？当别的学生都还没开始的时候，这个老师只有那几个人的话呢，他也可以写，他可以花很多时间，花很多精力来写很好的 recommendation letter。但一旦的话是到了 regular application 的时候，一个老师他要写100份 recommendation letter， 那么他根本就没有时间去考虑。所以说他写给你 recommendation letter 的话是非常非常一般，我是收手。所以说这个就是 apply early 是有advantage的，建议大家改干净的。
More importantly, if you apply to a school early, most schools have this policy where it's single choice early action. It means you can only apply to one school early, and if you apply to a school early, it means you show a special interest in the school. And that does help you, because the school wants to keep its yield rate high. And so, early action is one way to do it. Okay, so I think there are 2 deadlines, right? The early application deadline, the regular application deadline. All the people who apply early action will be compared, you know, well, they're not necessarily compared against one another. There's this, you know, like I said, the neighborhood standard is what they use, but they'll be evaluated together. If you're deferred, you go into the regular pot and you're evaluated with the rest of the applications. It's not rolling, so as long as you beat the deadline, you don't have to worry about it. It's hard to say. You'll have to do your research, school by school. I mean, I think it's more likely that you're compared not to the other students who apply early, but to, like I said, the people in your neighborhood, you know.
外面有一个车灯一直亮着，是一个 Toyota 的车，一个SUV， 在闪着，看它以后没电。
Don't worry about it, it's automatic.
Yeah.
在这个 application form 上 common application they ask you which major you maybe want to take and how sure you are, 10%, 80%, and somebody you can choose undecided. Do you think which one is better to? Most people don't know, and if you don't know, so undecided is good. Or if you choose say I want to engineer because you maybe say I want to go to Yale, but I don't think I can make a law, so I just say engineer, for example. Or say I want to go to Harvard, but I just check linguistics because nobody studied linguistics. But I want to. So, do you think the choice will affect you?
That can help you, but I mean, that's kind of a sleazy thing to do if you lie about what major you want to be just so you can get a numerical advantage. But if you check undecided, it's not going to hurt because, like you said, most students are undecided.
Right.
As they should be. I mean, they've not even gone to campus yet.
But somebody, if they feel like, yeah, I want to be engineering, and so they check engineering, and then they say, how much sure you're saying? Just tell the truth.
Yeah. I mean, it's only, if it does make a difference, it's only a marginal difference. Yeah. Yeah.
On average, how many colleges should you apply for?
How many colleges should you apply for? This was so long ago. So this is something that your counselor should be able to tell you, because your counselor, well, what school do you go to?
Lambert.
Lambert? Oh, okay. Well, your counselor should, she should have all the admission statistics for the previous years, and she should know how students from your school tend to do in the process. And so that's something you should discuss with her. I mean, I guess a rule of thumb, how many did I apply to?
Right.
Well, I didn't apply to a lot because I got in early action. Because after I got in early, you heard about early action before the regular deadline. And so if I didn't get into Yale early action, I would apply to a lot more. But I think I only ended up applying to like 8 or so. I think most students are around like 10 to 15, maybe? Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of it's Common App, and so you can apply to another school simply by, in a lot of cases, clicking on the button, and of course, I guess, giving them so many dollars or so. But, yeah.
你当时是什么时候知道 when did you get to know you got accepted?
Oh, this was great. So
before Christmas.
They told us, they always jumped the gun. They told us we were going to find out on December 15th?
Yes.
They told us on December 14th, and this was great because my Stanford application was due on December 15th,
right.
and I hadn't completed it, and I never completed it because I didn't have to anymore.
我一朋友的女儿就是她，比如说 Wharton， 她是 early action 什么的，early decision， 然后呢，正好12月份就好了，对不对？因为很多是end of December 有对吧 ？31st。
December 15th is when most.
有很多，反正最后她知道 Wharton 要她了，她别的哪个都不做了，管了，玩去了。
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Funding.
Yeah, 不能去别的地方了，所以主要是申请。
Yeah.
Funding.
Funding.
For example, if I want to study engineering, I mean, you know, Yale's engineering is not the best compared to MIT or maybe some other school. It's like I really want to study engineering. Should I go to Yale? I mean, the name is good, but then
It will be easy to make it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like kind of like
easy grades, I guess.
I don't know. Well, that's why no one at Yale studies engineering, because there are no easy